Morning. We are joined by Aryeh Bourkoff again, founder and CEO of LionTree LLC, deal maker of the moment and maybe of the decade. Can we give you that? But here's where I want to go with this. We were just talking about streaming and so much of the content side of this.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about the distributors, because right now there is a major lawsuit, a case that is going on in this city right now. The big state AGs taking on the Sprint T-Mobile deal, which was essentially going to transform, or could still transform, sort of how we think about distribution and therefore what happens. If the deal doesn't happen, meaning if these AGs are managed to block this transaction, what are the knock-on effects? What does the domino look like?
Well, first of all, I think that's hard to predict. But if they do end up blocking it at the AG level, I'm sure there's going to be a reapproach and an appeal and trying to get back at it, because there's a lot of desperation to get this deal done.
There is, but the other question is, if they lose the case, yes, they want to appeal, but at some point you're going to decide. Someone's going to have to decide this is going to take too long.
Yes, although what are the other? Life's a function of alternatives.
Right.
What are the other options you have? And I think at this point, these companies need each other so much, maybe one more than the other even.
Sprint more than T-Mobile.
Probably Sprint more than T-Mobile, but they need each other. And so there are ways to rework transactions. You just don't do that until you have a decision.
Right. What do you think the true implications of 5G are going to be, though? Because part of that transaction, the thesis, the premise, is the future of 5G, the opportunity for people to effectively stream direct to your phone and even direct to your home instead of as a replacement of cable. You've worked with Charter for so long, Comcast is the parent company of this network. Yeah.
There's
lots of views about this.
Like everything that you talk about and that we are active in this industry, one relates to the other. So we talked about the content streaming wars and having a lot of competition and a lot of uses for capacity, which it ultimately comes down to, and connectivity. If you're a consumer at home and you have the choice of Netflix or Amazon or Apple or Disney, and you don't have broadband, it doesn't work, right? So I think the connectivity portion of it, whether it's from the cable, which is really the primary asset, or 5G.
But here's the fundamental question. For so very long, the cable companies have been like the railroads.
Yes.
Okay? You have the cable on the ground, and it has been either monopoly or duopoly in any particular market. That has been part of the investment thesis, right? It's like the railroads.
With a lot of private investment spent on it. Yeah.
Absolutely. However, if you believe that 5G can actually get to speeds that are comparable, if not higher, than than the railroads or the wires that are in the ground, it's potentially transformative and changes that dynamic. Do you believe that ever is the case? By the way, there are physicists who will tell you that you'll always be able to run data faster over cables than in the air. But I've also heard a shift could be coming.
My father's a physicist, actually, so I'm well informed, hopefully, in this area through his advice. But otherwise, I have no knowledge of the physics myself. But I do think 5G will be important. I think it'll take a while, and I think there will be more competition on the broadband side. But for the foreseeable future, this is really cable's room to run. Okay. Whether it's Comcast or Charter or Altice in the U.S., that's a big, big component of growth here.
And the other question I was asking, it goes to where Becky was talking about in the last segment. This goes back to the content piece. Do you see more consolidation in the streaming wars? Because it is a little crazy to have an Apple Plus and a Amazon Prime, and I mean so many different effects. Because they're not just channels anymore. It's sort of beyond that. And so is there consolidation even there?
I don't think we're at the point where we're going to see consolidation among the platforms. These are scaled up players that have to execute, and it will shake out over the next few years.
Do you think there will be, when you say shake out, there will be people who drop out?
Not all these streaming platforms will survive. Absolutely right. Well, and they'll have to have assets that will realign around that.
I already talked about this. Did any of the remaining smaller legacy media, kind of Discovery, any of those guys? What would you tell David Zaslav to do right now? Is he okay?
I think David's okay, but David is one of those companies that will still continue to have to get bigger.
Continue, even though he's
have to grow more or get bought. Is that?
Well, I think there are still opportunities for consolidation among I would say, the mid-tier players that are not as big as the Disneys or the AT&Ts or the Comcast.
Is he a buyer or somebody who's
when you go and talk to him, what do you tell him to do?
Focus on his business and continue to grow.
You don't have any idea?
Something I probably wouldn't talk about here.
What?
Not for free.
Can you whisper it to me?
There are a lot of things I could whisper to you, but not that.
Oh, nice. Sweet nothings. All right.
Thank you.